Hello class, today we will learn all about succession and sustainability in plants. It might sound complicated, but it's very simple. Ecological succession is the growth of plants in a new ecosystem after a disturbance has occurred. Mr. Ratburn, what's a disturbance? Good question, Buster. A disturbance is a natural event that destroys all life in an ecosystem. For example, a forest fire that burns down everything, or a lava. There are two types of succession. The first one is primary succession, and the second one is secondary succession. Primary succession occurs after a disturbance where there is no soil and very little nutrients, such as a volcanic eruption. The first organisms are called pioneer species, and they are very simple and small, such as bacteria or grass. Nothing was grown in this area before the disturbance. When these organisms die, they decompose and turn into nutrient-filled soil. This helps other organisms to grow as there are more nutrients for the more developed plants, such as trees. This whole process can take very long, and it can go up to 100 to 150 years. Here is a perfect diagram for primary succession. The pioneer species take very long, and the other stages are much shorter. Secondary succession is when a disturbance occurs, the soil is still there. This type of succession is the regrowth of an ecosystem after a disturbance, which means there was life before the disturbance occurred. Soil contains seeds and roots from previous plants, which allows more complex organisms to grow faster. Sometimes there are seeds that need extreme heat to grow, and fires allow that to happen. Some ecosystems quickly regrow, such as after a flood, while others take over 100 years to completely grow back, such as a forest. Here is a great diagram of secondary succession. The fire and the pioneer species are very short, and then the other stages are longer. End of succession. Succession can keep going for up to 150 years. Succession ends when the ecosystem reaches its climax community. A climax community is when an ecosystem reaches its final stage, and nothing will enter or leave the community after that point. It is in a state of equilibrium, meaning it will remain stable until the next disturbance. Mr. Ratburn, what does that mean? Well, Francine, that means the ecosystem won't change unless another disturbance happens. Animals join the community right before the climax community forms, as the ecosystem provides food and shelter for many animals. Here is an example of what a climax community could look like. Frequency and importance of disturbances. Disturbances are more common than you think, as even a tree falling down can count as a small disturbance. Some places, like the Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming, can have larger disturbances very often. This park has a forest fire almost every single year, and no buster that is not a cover-up for an alien invasion. Disturbances are important because they cause change and allow different organisms to grow due to the changed climate. For example, a spruce lives better when a small disturbance occurs, while jack pines only grow after a fire. Disturbances bring change to the ecosystem. This is good because change means there are more animals and plants in the same ecosystem, including some that can survive disturbances. In short, disturbances create diversity, which makes the ecosystem bigger and allows it to live longer. Sustainability and importance of plants. Plants are at the beginning of every ecosystem. Both animals and humans are dependent on plants as they provide food and oxygen among other services. Without plants, ecosystem wouldn't exist as there would be no food for animals and it would be just rock. If plants were removed, there would be more erosion, dirtier air and water, more pollution, and less food and shelter for animals. A quick recap. Primary succession is the first time life grows in an area and there is no soil. Secondary succession is the regrowth of life after a disturbance and soil exists, which contains seeds and roots from previous plants. Both can take a very long time, although primary succession does take longer. Both also start off simple and more complex species come later. However, plants in primary succession are simpler than secondary succession as a whole. Think of it like Call of Duty. Primary succession is the first time you play the game. You aren't very good, it takes you a long time to learn, and your kill-death ratio is low, but you get better over time. Then when the next game comes, you already have that experience, which is like the soil, and you play better from the start, and you learn faster. The climax community is the final stage, and nothing changes until the next disturbance. Ecological disturbances are quite common, and they create biodiversity which makes the ecosystem larger and extends its life. Plants are more important to the earth than anything else, as they provide many services like food and oxygen.